You should be grateful that someone as plain and gloomy as you was embraced by me. I'm sorry, but I found a younger lover. It was a sudden event. My husband, who had always been gentle like a gentleman, was now hurling terrifying insults at me. This was at the entrance of our home. I had just returned home and could not comprehend the situation. What do you mean? I hoped it was a dream and that I would wake up soon. Trembling, I shouted as loudly as I could at the merciless man before me. That's what I've been telling you. I've never been interested in an old hag like you. I've already accomplished my goal with our marriage. Just sign the divorce papers and get out. My husband continued to berate me, making me feel even more frightened. Looking down on me, he resembled a demon from a painting of hell. What goal? And you're telling me to get out of this house? But this house is. Then an unbelievable truth came from my husband's mouth. I've sold the house. After we divorce, I plan to live elegantly with the money with my lover. Shocked by these unexpected words, I realized that all the happy days we had spent together and the kind words and smiles of my husband were all lies. They were merely means to an end for him. I had been deceived by my husband. He was grabbing his new happiness, and I was left with nothing, falling into the darkness of loneliness. That was the ending he wanted for us. However, if he knew my true identity, he would quickly change his tune. I understand. I swore in my heart to make sure this man could never walk proudly under the sun again. From this moment, as I clenched my fist, my triumphant advance began. My name is Olivia. I'm 42 years old. I live in a high-rise apartment a little away from the city where the sparkling night view from the high floor is breathtakingly beautiful. I work at a trading company whose head office is located in a skyscraper in the city center, handling numerous administrative tasks daily, such as document and material preparation and support for sales staff. Although it seems like I lead a glamorous life, I'm single without a boyfriend. I dress in plain suits like a job-seeking student, with my black hair tied back and black-rimmed glasses. No man approaches me with such an appearance. Moreover, in the office, I am disparaged as an old maid, and female employees who leave work on time to pick up their children from daycare dump their work on me. For the past few years, I haven't been punching out on time. My days are spent commuting between home and work. Only the night sky, which I gaze at with a sigh, gently envelopes me. After returning home, the first thing I do is pray to the smiling portraits of my deceased parents, which has become my morning and evening routine. Mom, Dad, I'm home. Of course, they always greet me silently and kindly. My parents died 10 years ago in a car accident involving their car and a large truck. Human life is fleeting. No matter how much I called their names, they never came back when I rushed to the hospital. Being estranged from relatives and having no siblings, I became completely alone. I don't wish for great happiness. Modesty is enough. I don't desire luxury. I just hope to continue this life without losing anything more precious. One day in April, after working overtime, I walked through the unusually lively streets on my way home. The sky was completely dark, and the chilly air made me shiver. However, the warmth of the city remained unabated, and the cheeks of the merry people were flushed with excitement. Ah, it's Friday today, I thought. There must be welcoming parties happening everywhere. As I hurried home, ignoring the cherry trees along the streets that were not allowed to sleep under the multitude of lights, it happened, a dull thud, and suddenly my vision was obstructed. It smelled of alcohol. It seemed I had bumped into a drunk person. Just as I apologized and tried to move away, a drunken man approached me, breathing alcohol-laden breath without reservation. He was probably complaining to me, but his words were slurred. I tried to escape in fear, but more of the drunkard's friends arrived. Surrounded by a circle of drunkards, I couldn't move. That's when a man pushed through the crowd and rushed to me. He argued with the drunkards for a few minutes, but thanks to his resolute demeanor, the drunkards didn't resist any further. Afterward, he grabbed my hand, and we started walking quickly. I couldn't see the man's face, but as I followed the tall figure in a trench coat, my heartbeat gradually quickened. You're safe now. There are quite a few drunkards out tonight. Such people, usually weak, become bold with alcohol, especially when the opponent is a woman. It's the worst. He looked down at me with a refreshing smile. Being stared at so closely by such a handsome man, I was too embarrassed to look up. My heartbeat intensified, and my face grew hotter. Are you okay? It must have been scary, but don't worry anymore. That was my limit. Being treated kindly by such a handsome man, who lacked immunity to men, felt like I might just melt away from embarrassment. I should leave quickly. Thank you. I really appreciate your help. Excuse me. I turned my back on the man and started walking. Wait, it's dangerous for a woman to walk alone on such a night. I'll walk you to your front door, the man chased after me. It's okay. Besides, I'm an old maid. I might get tangled up but not attacked. If such a wonderful man walked with someone like me, he would surely feel embarrassed. He grabbed my hand again. I turned around suddenly and looked up at him. That's when I first saw his eyes. He was also staring intently at me. What are you talking about? You must have been scared. I'm worried about you. I'll escort you. Drawn into his clear eyes, I nodded involuntarily. Thank you. Then we enjoyed trivial conversations as we walked home. I was warmed by his innocent smiles and the care he showed by escorting me over bumps and narrow paths. It was my first experience of this kind in life. Thank you very much. This is where I live. The 15 minutes I spent with him flew by, and we arrived in front of my apartment building. Then the man looked up at the building, surprised. It was not hard to imagine why. It was hard to imagine that such a plain woman like me lived in such a luxurious high-rise apartment. You live in such a beautiful apartment. Do you live here with your parents? Normally, I would hesitate to share personal information with someone I just met, but I owed him a favor and could trust him. My parents have passed away. I bought this apartment in my own name since I'll probably be single for life. I laughed, and he smiled kindly. Since you helped me today, may I offer you my thanks? It's not like me to say this, but I am truly surprised by myself. However, I sincerely wanted to thank him, and it's true that I wanted to spend a bit more time with this man. He kindly nodded, and we exchanged contact information before parting. His name is David, and he is 40 years old. True to his name, he is a kind and generous man. That night, I couldn't fall asleep easily. His calm smile haunted my thoughts, and before I knew it, I was thinking about him constantly. Even though I'm an old maid, in the spring of my 42nd year, a time when love had been absent, I fell in love with him. Later, responding to my courageous invitation, he and I dined at a French restaurant in a hotel. A woman shouldn't have to pay, he said as he stopped me from paying and offered his card instead. I intended to treat him but ended up being treated myself. On another holiday, we went to an aquarium together. David, who enjoys fishing and marine sports and has extensive knowledge of fish, led me into a world I did not know. Olivia, you are truly humble and wonderful. It's like a miracle that we met while both still single. I blushed involuntarily at his shy smile. Thus, our relationship rapidly grew closer, and it naturally evolved into us dating. Then, a few months later, he proposed to me. The proposal came during a dinner on a cruise ship, which is popular for its nighttime scenery. It was the scenario I had secretly longed for, and he gently offered me a ring. Looking into his earnest eyes, I nodded. It was like a dream, a Cinderella story. However, there was one thing that concerned me about marrying him: children. At 42, I had to consider the possibility that I might not be able to have children. As if seeing through my worries, David held my hand and whispered, "I want to be with you, Olivia. Even if we can't have children, we can be happy together." He always embraced me gently, and I felt constantly saved by him. Thus, we got married and started our happy life together in the apartment I owned. 6 months passed. Our married life was going smoothly. We devoted ourselves to our jobs during the day and spent quiet evenings together. However, my concerns were confirmed, and despite several attempts, we were unable to conceive. It's something that's given, and there's no need to rush. Also, you shouldn't blame yourself. Perhaps I'm the one with the issue. My husband always encouraged me with his gentle smile, even as I focused too much on our ages. Yet I couldn't give up on my dream of having at least one child. I visited a well-known gynecologist to learn about infertility treatments. There were options for advanced and expensive treatments which would require my husband's cooperation. However, my husband frowned upon the idea of fertility treatments and was reluctant. There's no need to go that far. There are many happy couples without children. I don't want a pregnancy that requires so much effort. He left the living room coldly, leaving those words behind. It seemed I had upset him. Maybe I had pushed too hard out of my desire to have children. We should have discussed it more as a couple, perhaps. I had also demanded too much by keeping track of my ovulation dates. My actions likely pressured him. After that, our marital relation ceased, and my husband began to sleep with his back turned to me. It was my fault. I had angered him. It was too late to regret it, but we couldn't repair our relationship, and half a year passed. Hey, our first wedding anniversary is coming up soon, right? How about we go out to eat for the first time in a while? Remember the cruise ship where we have good memories? There are still seats available on that weekday. We can still make a reservation for dinner. If we could spend a pleasant time facing each other like back then, maybe his feelings would return, I thought. With a bit of hope, I dared to invite him. At first, my husband was surprised and hesitant, but when I said it would be my treat, he nodded, not entirely displeased. That sounds good. It might be nice to eat out for a change. The food there was delicious. Relieved by his softened expression, I immediately made the reservation and looked forward to the day. On the day of the appointment, I finished work on time for the first time in a while, went home to change into a dress I usually don't wear, and headed to the meeting place. The sound of my heels bouncing made my heart flutter. Surely, my husband would be surprised to see me like this. I arrived at the boarding area at the harbor. My husband was not yet there. I had arrived a bit early, so I decided to wait for him. Since getting married, we had stopped having dates like this, but today was special. The anticipation of waiting for him felt just like the old times. As passengers boarded one by one, my husband still hadn't arrived. I checked the time. The departure was approaching. Despite multiple calls, there was no response from my husband, and gradually, anxiety began to dominate me. I was approached several times by the crew staff, but I could only wait for him. Then the ship sailed on time, and I was left alone at the harbor. Still, I waited, believing he would come. Before I knew it, 2 hours had passed without any contact from him. Could something have happened to him? A foreboding feeling crossed my mind. With that thought, I hurried home. I prayed over and over that my husband was safe. When I opened the front door, I was shocked because an unexpected scene unfolded before my eyes. Hey, you're late. Were you waiting for me all alone at the harbor? That must have been tough. The man looking down on me and laughing mockingly was undoubtedly my husband. For some reason, He was packing his belongings into a duffel bag. Why are you at home? You remember we had a plan today, right? Ignoring my concern, my husband burst into loud laughter. Oh, of course. How does it feel to be left alone at the harbor? Or did you ride the ship alone and eat a dinner for two? Clearly, this was not the gentle and kind husband I knew. What's going on? Why has he changed so drastically? I couldn't understand the situation. And what's with that outfit? A 43-year-old hag dressing like that, trying to lure me to bed. It's nauseating. I have no use for you anymore. Ah, this must be a dream. This man is not my husband. He would never say such cruel things, I told myself, but my mind went blank. Why are you crying? I don't want to see an old hag's tears. I made a mistake getting married. I should have chosen a younger, fresher woman. Tears flowed down my cheeks before I realized it. I wished this nightmare would end soon. My husband's insults and verbal abuse only got worse. It was easy to deceive you. Just a few sweet words, and you were hooked right from the start. When I first saw your house, I decided then I was going to take it over. It must have been tough for a plain office worker like you to pay off the mortgage on this room. Thanks to you, the contract went smoothly. I couldn't believe what my husband was saying. Take over. What do you mean, what contract? As I trembled, my husband cruelly continued. The purpose of our marriage was to get this house. I've never been interested in a plain old hag like you. But living with you turned out to be incredibly boring. I thought I could live a more elegant life, but you being so frugal made it utterly joyless. Each of his abusive words pierced my heart as he continued to raise his voice, unconcerned. What infertility treatment? It's too late for you. You should be grateful I even touched a plain and gloomy old hag like you. Actually, I have a lover, and she's pregnant. My husband pulled what appeared to be a new set of baby clothes from his duffel bag. It's definitely about youth. My lover is 23 years old. Get it? You should just give up. As the blood drained from my body, I could no longer stand and fell to my knees, slumped over. Our finances were separate in our dual-income life. We didn't know each other's earnings or savings, but lately, my husband had been asking me for money more frequently, saying we were short on living expenses. I had no idea he was spending it on his lover. It seems he met her at a nightclub. He squandered my money there and managed to get involved with her, who was then the top girl, leading to her pregnancy. She was good at spending money and fun to be around, which made my self-satisfied husband relentlessly insult me in my weakened state. From now on, I'll be living in a different high-rise apartment with her, so we're getting divorced. The sale procedures for this house are already complete. You need to leave as soon as possible. It was a terrifying scream. There's no way you could just sell it like that. His story was so surreal that I raised my voice without thinking. It was quite a hassle. I had to go to the office multiple times to get various documents, and the most troublesome was getting your certificate. Look at this. My husband threw my driver's license at me. It seems he took it from my wallet while I was asleep. He had also taken other important documents, like my seal and the house's registry certificate. With these documents, my husband and his lover went to the real estate agent. Unbelievably, the lover disguised herself to look older and resemble the photo on my driver's license. I wonder if the sale really went through. Real estate agents aren't blind. Maybe my husband is misunderstanding something. Either way, what my husband did is a crime. If he actually did it, it shouldn't go unpunished. The tears that had been flowing like lies stopped, and I regained my composure. That's why this house isn't yours anymore. I've decided to take all the money from the sale, so you're no longer needed. I'm giving you 3 days to pack your things and leave, my husband said, throwing the divorce papers at me with his part already filled out. I understand. I'll sign the divorce papers. In return, could you give me back all the important documents, my driver's license and my seal? If the sale is completed, you won't need them anymore, right? My husband readily agreed to my demand and returned everything to me before leaving through the front door. He was probably heading to the high-rise apartment where his lover lives. I can't forgive him. This is marriage fraud. Along with rising anger, I regretted my foolishness for believing in such a man, and tears flooded again. My husband was not really looking at me. He was after a lavish lifestyle in a high-rise apartment. He just used me for that alone. I entered the bedroom and collapsed onto the bed, curling up in the fetal position. I embraced myself and closed my eyes. Then I knew no more. Overcome by exhaustion and shock, I had apparently fallen into a deep sleep. 3 days later, my husband contacted me. On the other side of the phone, he was a different person, shouting at me in a rough tone. Hey, you're ready, right? As promised, you're moving out today. Trying to calm my indignation at his unreasonable tone, I responded, wait a minute. We've been together for a year. If we're going to part, I want to do it properly. Can I meet your lover? I couldn't just back down quietly. I have my pride too. To my surprise, my husband readily agreed, and we arranged to meet at a cafe near the station. Hey, poor single old hag, this is my girlfriend. Unlike you, she's hundreds of times younger and cuter, my husband said as soon as he entered the cafe. He found me and raised his voice without caring about the people around. Sitting next to my husband, his lover wafted a strong perfume scent and wore a tight dress that clearly outlined her body, with flashy makeup suitable for the nightlife. Brushing aside her long golden hair, she snorted as if triumphant. Really? You're so different from me. How beautiful. How did you manage to impersonate me and go to the real estate agent? I asked. Flattered by the compliment, the lover started to talk freely. For the day, I dyed my hair black, wore a hat and glasses for disguise, drew wrinkles on my face with eyeliner, and only nodded or shook my head without speaking in response to the real estate agent. I just sat there, he did all the talking. This way, we get a lot of money, right? It's easy. Such a suspicious pair, the real estate agent must have had doubts, and selling a house isn't that easy. Amazing, really impressive. I might get a call from the real estate agent in the future. The more I flattered her, the more she got carried away. She was the perfect person for gathering information. One last question, are you really prepared to stay with my husband in the future? I looked into the lover's eyes. Her eyelashes were thick, and her eyeliner was heavily applied. Of course. He's kind and has money. I can quit my hard night job, and from now on, I'll indulge in luxury in the high-rise apartment. Plus, I'm pregnant with his baby. This lover was ultimately after money too. My husband, oblivious, was just stretching his nose in front of his young girlfriend. I presented the divorce papers to them, but my section was still blank. Wait. Why haven't you written anything? Write it down quickly, otherwise, we can't get married. The lover panicked more than expected. Did she want my husband's property that badly? Well, since you have a child, I lose. There's no sin on the unborn child. I signed the previously blank section of the document, completing it. We'll submit this ourselves, I said as I finished signing. The lover hurriedly snatched the divorce papers, folded them carelessly, and stuffed them into her bag. With a sigh of relief, my husband sat there brazenly, as if still claiming victory. I took one last look at their despicable figures and stood up. Thank you. I wish you happiness. Also, wait a week for the move out. There are many procedures to handle, like water and gas. 3 days is simply not enough. Reluctantly, my husband agreed. I left them in the cafe and walked away briskly. The place I swiftly headed to next was the familiar real estate office. Ironically, 3 days before my husband's drastic change and declaration of divorce, I had received a call from an acquaintance who worked there on a night when I was utterly exhausted. The real estate office my husband visited with his disguised lover to sell the house was ironically one where I had long-standing ties, and the person in charge was my acquaintance. This acquaintance, who knew me well, was puzzled to see the lover in disguise. However, due to professional decorum, she couldn't ask too detailed questions about non-work-related matters and handled the situation blandly, thinking it inappropriate to cause a complaint. Hesitant to finalize a sale contract with the suspicious pair under my name, my contact encouraged the lover to sign a mediation contract instead of a sale contract. The clueless pair, who hardly read the documents, believed they were signing a sale contract and were under the impression that the deal was sealed. After the lover signed, the unwitting pair left the real estate office in high spirits. There's a reason why I have a familiar relationship with this real estate office. In fact, I own this high-rise building and several other properties. My total assets amount to $130 million, which explains my deep connections with real estate people. Often, people wonder how such a plain office worker could own so much real estate. It is the result of managing assets through stocks and investments inherited from my parents, not just frivolously spending money on nightlife. Even a small amount accumulates into a large sum over time if saved diligently. Even after getting married, part of me never fully trusted my husband. I feared revealing my true identity might ruin our marriage. What if knowing about my wealth changed his personality? With these fears, I kept my significant details secret and only shared the location of the documents in case something happened. I could never have imagined he would misuse this information. It happened that my husband found the property registration certificate in the same drawer where the documents were kept and conceived this vile plan. I had failed to see what kind of man he was before we married, which is my own fault, but what my husband did was criminal. The real estate agent and I agreed on this. His actions are unforgivable. I then distributed his photo to several other real estate offices I frequently dealt with. Information spread quickly, and he was soon blacklisted as a suspected fraudster across all real estate businesses in the area. As expected, my ex-husband was arrogantly planning to make a fortune from selling the house and touring real estate offices, oblivious to the actual situation behind the scenes. A week passed as agreed. My ex-husband and his lover came to my home, thinking the divorce had been processed and they would finally own the house. Bursting with joy and anticipation, my ex-husband opened the front door with a sense of ownership. However, a harsh reality far beyond his imagination awaited him. "Hey, what's going on? Did you move out like I told you? I said you had to leave within a week." Only my ex-husband's belongings were left at the entrance. I hadn't prepared to move at all. The two of them began to rage and shout. "This is my house. You're the ones who should be leaving here. I've packed your things, so take them and leave quickly." I kept my cool despite their raging and shouting, reminding myself to stay calm and take deep breaths. "Don't talk nonsense, you crazy old hag. Didn't I tell you I've sold this house? I handled everything. If you want, I can show you the proof." Red-faced and nearly lunging at me in his fury, my ex-husband was more deranged and furious than any drunkard I'd encountered. Yet, I stared back at him without flinching. "What's that attitude for? If you can't listen to me, maybe I should make it so you can't talk either, you crazy old hag." My ex-husband charged at me from the entrance, but at that moment, the real estate agent appeared from the living room. "Please wait. You seem to be under some misunderstanding. The house has not yet been sold. The procedures are still underway. The agent stepped between us, halting my ex-husband's advance. I had asked him to be there just in case something happened. What do you mean? I definitely signed the contract back then. Or did you deceive us? Are you a fraudster? I'll sue. My ex-husband grabbed the agent by the collar. The agent tried to calm him down, but my ex-husband's anger only escalated. This person is the real estate agent. I always rely on him. He just told the truth and has done nothing wrong. My words only fueled my ex-husband's fury further, and he continued to rant. I never told you, but I am the owner of this building. There's no one in the local real estate market who doesn't know me. How dare you attempt such a foolish disguise and try to sell a house without any knowledge? At that moment, my ex-husband's face changed, and silence fell. What you did is a crime. You're the one who should be sued. I've already filed a police report. It's only a matter of time before you're arrested. In fact, I had been recording with a voice recorder at the cafe. Your lover had freely spoken without hesitation during my questioning. Combined with documents from the real estate and surveillance camera footage, the evidence is clear. This is a solid case of fraud. Sweat poured down my ex-husband's forehead, and his face turned as red as a volcano about to erupt. As he lunged at me like a mad beast, the agent struggled to hold him back. Then, in a change of aggression, my ex-husband attempted to hit the agent. At that moment, a dull thud sounded as my ex-husband's body flew through the air and hit the floor. Ouch! What are you doing? The agent, who held a black belt in judo, had applied a gentle throw to prevent further harm and calm my ex-husband. It was in self-defense. Just in case, I've installed cameras in this room, and this will also serve as solid evidence. My ex-husband was cornered. Then suddenly, he collapsed on the floor, utterly defeated. Wait, what's going on? I thought I was going to make a fortune with that disguise and play acting. Now, not only do I not get a penny, but I'm also a criminal. I was just deceived by this old man. I did nothing wrong. The lover, who had been so arrogant, suddenly looked evasive and made excuses. I was foolish to trust you, this penniless old man. It was always about the money for me, and the pregnancy was a lie. Once we were married and I had the money, I planned to claim a miscarriage and leave you quickly. I have no interest in an old man like you. Everyone was shocked by the lover's words. Who would have thought she was also a marriage fraudster? You drooling over young women is disgusting, you old pervert. I'll put your stuff outside the entrance, so take it and get out of my house. The lover shouted this with a shrill voice before storming out of the entrance. Her heels echoed through the hallway, eventually fading away, and silence returned. I'm sorry it has come to this. I won't appear before you again. I'll leave this town, so could you please drop the criminal charges? An exhausted David gathered his last bit of strength and apologized. However, no matter how much he apologized, it was too late. Olivia firmly rejected her husband's plea, and so their battle came to an end. Later, I heard that David and his lover were arrested. They denied the charges to the very end, but numerous pieces of evidence led to their arrest. Months later, spring arrived again. I returned to my life alone, continuing my routine between home and work. One day, I received a call from the real estate agent. He wanted to talk, and we decided to meet in a nearby park on a peaceful weekend afternoon. We sat side by side under a cherry tree. I sensed he was different, somewhat nervous. What could it be? Suddenly, he stood up. I have always loved you, but because of my position, I couldn't express my feelings. However, I won't hide them anymore. I've decided to tell you so that no despicable man can ever take you away again. His cheeks flushed, and he looked like a boy showing an expression I had never seen before. It seemed he had always harbored feelings for me. In fact, he was the second son of the president of a renowned major real estate company, and he had suppressed his feelings, thinking it was inappropriate to be romantically involved with a valued client. His family was wealthy, and the company would be inherited by his older brother. He was prepared to start his own business, and now, seeing it as a chance, he expressed his feelings. You should be true to yourself. Do more of what you love, wear the clothes you like, and enjoy both your work and your private life. In truth, my plain appearance was a facade. I hid my real self, following my parents' teaching not to display wealth. I know your true beauty. I saw you at a real estate party, elegantly dressed and the center of attention from men. To me, you were always out of reach. Now, I will make my own success and become a man worthy of you. To think someone who truly saw me was so close. I smiled and nodded at him, looking directly into his eyes. The flower petals fluttering around seemed to be celebrating us.